Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Unrooted Summer Series, where we take you behind the scenes and we give you a look at really what makes Menlo Athletics tick as we get things going in the couple of weeks before the school year officially begins in August. I'm Brian Brownfield. My guest for the first episode of the summer series is none other than Assistant Athletic Director of Menlo College, Aaron Gillespie. Aaron, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Let's start by getting to know you a little bit better now. As an Ohio native, I'm sure a lot of people probably assume that you're from the Cleveland area. As a matter of fact, that's not true at all. You're from Van Wert, Ohio. Not many people know about Van Wert, Ohio, so what should they know about Van Wert, Ohio?
What should you know about Van Wert, Ohio? It's a tiny little town in the northwest corner of Ohio. Biggest major city by it is probably Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's right on the Ohio-Indiana border. It's not known for a lot. It's a little farming town. I think it's about 12,000 people now. It does have the first public county library in the United States, is the claim to fame, the Brumback Library. So,
really?
Got that going for
How
us.
many times were you there?
Quite a bit as a kid, I guess. They do like their summer reading programs, all that good stuff. So spent some time there. It's a beautiful building right downtown. But yeah, Van Wert is a great place to grow up, but it is a tiny little town.
Is there any good food in Van Wert, Ohio?
If you like fast food, it's there's two McDonald's. You got that. A lot of fast food. There used to be a local restaurant right on Main Street that specialized in chicken and noodles and mashed potatoes. Good old fashioned Midwestern food. It's not there anymore. It's there in a different iteration, but it's home.
Yeah. So if you want the good food, you're going to have to go to Cleveland.
Yes.
And
exactly.
That's about, what, 3 hours
it's
away?
About 3 hours, I would say, yeah.
Okay.
So spent a lot of time there. Big Cleveland Indians fan. Big trade today, Brad Hand.
Big Cleveland Browns fan, too.
Well, they'll be better, but got a long way to go.
You can hop on the bandwagon later on.
Yeah.
Now, since there's not much in Van Wert, Ohio, I guess then I really have to ask about your baseball card collection. You kind of have that as a hobby on the side. How did that start? Did it go back to your childhood?
Yeah, I collected as a kid growing up. A lot of... my mom would tell you that she still has a closet dedicated to all of our cards growing up. A lot of them were in the quote-unquote junk wax era from like the late 80s to the mid-90s, where it's a lot of common cards and it got really big and they kind of overproduced everything. So there's some stuff of value in there, but mostly sentimental value, but have gotten back into it lately. So.
Favorite card you have?
Oh boy, I'm a big Indians fan, so Francisco Lindor collector. I have one copy of all of his rookie cards from 2014, I guess.
Every single rookie card?
Pretty much, I think. One of each product that he came out in, which was a bunch. There's a bunch of different products now, but I have one of each.
Any of those numbered to of 100, of 50?
Yeah, a lot of them are. I don't think I have a couple one-of-ones of him and Corey Kluber, but then the rest of them are all just kind of like higher numbered. I just focused on getting the rookie card stamp on the cards. So
awesome.
That's my nerding out on baseball cards.
Awesome. Now, among your previous endeavors professionally, you've had a stint as an intern with the UFC as a public relations intern. What was that experience like?
It was cool. I mean, I was in college. I was a big part of the Bowling Green Radio Sports Organization, calling games, and also co-hosted a UFC weekly talk show that me and one of my buddies from college did, and that kind of got me interested in the UFC. I needed to do an internship to fulfill my credits to graduate. Applied for the UFC. It was one of the last interviews I had before I had to make a decision on what I was going to do the next semester, because I needed to report the internship. Got a call, got the internship. I think maybe 2 weeks later, loaded up my little Kia and drove across the country. And it was a great experience. It was the UFC, that was almost 8 years ago, so it was a very different company at that point. The WEC was still in effect, which was like the lighter weight fighters, so I worked kind of cross-functionally between the WEC and the UFC. Did everything, worked a couple live events. Actually went back to Ohio, worked one back in Columbus at the Arnold Classic, which is a big deal in Columbus, and learned a lot about writing press releases and running events with high-profile figures and doing autograph signings and kind of running the gamut of the public relations world, and learned a lot of things that I can still put into place now.
And in a way, got you acclimated to the West Coast, because now here you are 8 years later, even though you've been here for a little bit now, but kind of like the first real trek across the country.
You
go back, and then now you're here in California.
Yeah, it was the first cross-country drive, which you know something about now with your time in Hagerstown and all those cross-country drives. There's a lot of beautiful things in the country, and then there's a lot of boring stretches of land.
Yes, there is. But the one good thing about driving all the way across the country is you can't get delayed on your flights.
Oh, man.
One fun fact about Aaron Gillespie, ladies and gentlemen, is that he gets delayed on about 95% of flights he takes anywhere in the world. Why do airlines and airports hate you?
I wish I had an answer for that. It's crazy, and it's like, we always joke about it, and when you wrote these questions, I was trying to think, like, am I just being dramatic with it, or do I really get delayed that much? And looking back at it, I mean, two years ago, I missed the entire first day of CASIDA in Dallas because my flight got canceled. I had to fly out the next day. And then I almost missed going to the wrestling national tournament last year because my flight to Des Moines got canceled and then the connections didn't work. And yeah, it's wild. I don't know what the deal is, but when I fly with my wife, it seems to be better. But when I fly independently, I'm always just expecting that my flight's not going to be on time.
That's true. So your recent Europe trip, it seemed like everything went well flight-wise on that.
Yeah, it was probably the most intricate flight schedule I've had, and everything worked perfectly. So I don't know what the solution is, or what I need to do, carry around some Lucky Charms or what. But
you just can't fly solo.
I guess that's the answer.
That seems like, that seems like that'd be the solution to it. Now let's talk a little bit about Menlo College. You came to Menlo in 2013. You were the sports information director, and you've since been promoted to assistant AD for marketing and communications. How have you found your role change, but also how have you found yourself grow to reflect that change in the position?
Yeah, it's a little bit different in the sense that, part of the big difference is now that I oversee yourself and Daniel in sports information and game operations. So there's a little bit more on the management side. But, being able to kind of settle into a role and kind of know how both sides of those things function, and then trying to push our department forward both in those areas and then in marketing and promotions and those types of things. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, as in that world, it's telling the story of our student athletes. And I think we have a phenomenal story to tell here. We're a tiny little school that wins a lot of games and has a great athletic department and a great academic side of the house. And being able to kind of settle into a different role and think a little bit more strategically about how we can get that message out there has been a lot of fun.
So what are some of the challenges of trying to tell that story? Because we're here in the Bay Area, and of course you have all the collegiate giants, the Stanfords, the Cals, and then you have all the professional giants, literally the giants, the 49ers, the Raiders, all those teams here in the Bay Area. How hard is it to market a department that often gets overshadowed?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's overstating it to say that it's one of the most competitive media markets in the entire country, and we're smack dab in the middle of it. Stanford's right down the street, and San Jose State's not far, and a lot of big programs and professional programs, like you said. But I think the struggle is that traditional media outlets aren't as robust anymore. There's not a lot of local reporters, so you're trying to fight for their time to get your feature stories out there and get things told and get time on TV and all that good stuff. But I think that a lot of the industry shift has been toward becoming your own content creator and bringing as many things as you can in-house to tell the story. And I think that that's kind of pushed our profession specifically. Now we're, quasi-graphic designers and broadcasters and TV production folks and, traditional press releases and stats and all that good stuff. And I think that's kind of what's fun about this job, is that you're doing a little bit of everything, and it's your job. You can do as much as you want, or as much as you can, or as little as you want. And I think that, kind of creating your own content, bringing everything in-house as much as you can, telling the story as much as you can on your own mediums is a fun and unique challenge, but it's definitely a challenge.
You hinted at this in the first question. You're now overseeing my department, sports information, and also our new game operations director, Daniel Romero. We haven't been here as long as someone like you now. So how big of a difference is it being a mentee and a mentor? You've now been in both roles.
Yeah, I think it's fun. Part of it, you've been here almost as long as I have been as a student.
As a student, yeah.
And now you're in the full-time role, and it's been fun to see. I think that's part of the job that I've grown to like a lot, is kind of mentoring and handing things off and letting people kind of grow and relish their role and learn different ways that they can manage fellow students or grow in their broadcasting or whatever interests them, kind of trying to find a way to grow that. And I think that's been one of the most rewarding parts of this job is, you guys are both Menlo alums, which is cool. And you've both worked, Daniel worked for almost 3 years as a student, and now he's rolling into a full-time role. You worked for basically 4 years as a student, and you've already got one full-time year under your belt, and you're doing great things. So I think it's cool to see, you guys putting things into practical application and helping us grow this department.
You've seen a lot of things here at Menlo College during your time. How have you seen Menlo develop, and what has kept you here at Menlo College?
I think just the consistent upward trajectory has been what's kept me here. I mean, I think it's been fun to see. We've added sports, and we've added staffing, and we've won more games, and I think big things are on the horizon as well. We changed conferences. That was a big change as well. I mean, all of this has happened over the last 5-6 years, so it's been kind of growing at a frenetic pace, and I think we're in a good spot as far as, we've got some of the best athletes on campus that we've seen. And not to mention that we have a great history of great athletes on this campus as well. So I think things are going in the right direction, and a lot of that is Keith Spataro's leadership and pushing this department forward and finding ways to support our department as well. I mean, we started out and it was essentially 1.5, 2 people, depending, running the show, and now we have a 3-person staff here in our world, and then we have a great group of interns and student workers, and it's just been a lot of fun to be able to kind of put your thumbprint on things and continue to push it forward.
Go ahead and put your Menlo fan hat on for a second. My last Oak Press article as a student, I wrote 5 major predictions that I thought would happen in the sporting world within about 5 years. One of them was that Menlo would win a national championship in 5 years. Where do you think we're at on that?
How many? That was
about 2 years
ago. I think that the women's basketball team was knocking on the door last year. Both of our wrestling programs are just consistently knocking on the door, and there's some phenomenal recruits coming in there as well. I think they have a lot of opportunity, and I just think that it's hard to tell. I mean, it's a big country, and a lot of things have to go right, and you're traveling across the country to play these good teams. But I think the more and more that we're playing these big opponents, the more and more we're showing like we're not that far off. And I hope you're right. I mean, 3 more years to make it true, but I guess I wouldn't be overly surprised if it happened.
For sure. All right, Aaron, let's get into the final segment of the show. It's called Brownie Bites. I'm going to ask you 3 off-the-wall questions. You give me your best answers. Question number 1, which coworker would your dog Cooper love the most?
Love the most? Boy, that's a tough one because he's a rescue dog, and he is scared of everything from trash cans walking down the sidewalk to the wind blowing too hard. I mean, that's just his nature. He's a very skittish puppy, but I don't know. I think anybody that gives him treats would be the answer.
I tried to give him Wendy's fries and he didn't like me.
That's true. He's a McDonald's fries dog, I think. I don't know.
Well, then that's your wife's fault because she gave me a Wendy's fry. I said, "Here, feed him a fry." It didn't work.
That's his. Unfortunately, that's his quirk.
All right. Question number 2: which coworker would have the most ridiculous baseball card?
Boy, that's a tough one. I feel like Mark Fowler has a sneaky good collection. We share. Well, we don't share office space, but we're very close to each other, and we talk a fair amount about the baseball card world, and he knows his stuff. I feel like he's holding out on me. I think he's got a good collection in there.
Yeah, and a Little League dad too, so he's got youngsters who probably collect cards.
Yep.
Like father, like son. It makes sense.
I think he might.
And then question number 3, which coworker are you most excited to invite your house for a backyard barbecue?
Clearly Brian Brownfield. It's got to happen. I'm a little embarrassed. I bought a smoker, and I feel like I've just butchered 2 briskets so far, so I got to get one right first, figure out how to get it right, and then I'll invite you over because I can't embarrass myself in my own backyard.
Well, that's where I can test it out too, and if I butcher it, then we're all butchering it, and it's perfectly fine.
Could blame you.
Summer's almost over.
It is.
And you said at the beginning of the summer it was going to happen, so we got like a month left of this thing.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
Okay, good, because I cannot wait to eat some bomb barbecue.
I hope it's good. Yeah, that's the struggle right now. Got to work on it. Need to practice.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, folks. Next week, we'll be highlighting a different area of the athletic department here at Menlo College as we continue with Unrooted Summer Series to get you warmed up for the fall sports season beginning in the middle of August. Until then, we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.